you want him to do you so much you could do anything?
All right, all right. Welcome, all of my favorite garden enthusiasts and passionate plant people. Welcome here to our Sunday edition of the Let's Get Growing show here on the Urban Gardener channel. I'm Enoch. I'm your host today, and happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone! And welcome here to the show. We've got a really, really great show here ahead for you today. We are doing our Sunday edition, all your garden questions answered with our good friend Scott Wilson of the Gardener Scott channel. Scott will be joining us here just a little bit later on in the show, and we're gonna have a fun discussion. It's the beginning of our season, so that's kind of what we'll talk today and just answer all of your questions in general. So really looking forward to that interview here just a little bit here. And be sure to also, if you're watching us right here at the top of this show, to hit the like button, click that thumbs up, and also subscribe to the show if you haven't yet already. And also there's a bell there too that you can click, and you can get notified of all of our upcoming shows and videos on the Urban Gardener channel. So definitely subscribe and share with all of your garden friends. Don't keep our show a secret. Let everybody know about our show. So definitely share with all of your friends and groups, and let everybody know. We've got really, really amazing, awesome guests that we have on our show each and every weekend here on Let's Get Growing. So definitely be sure to share with all your friends and let them know too, so that they can meet and all of these really wonderful people we get to have some awesome conversations with each and every weekend. And then also too, at the top of the show, I'd like to give a big, huge shout out to all of you who are watching on the replay. I know a lot of you who are watching on the replay can only catch us at certain times when you've got that time available, and that's a really awesome thing about being able to do these live streams on YouTube, is that we get to have all of these replays available for all of you later on to be able to watch. So if you are watching on the replay, definitely get down into the comment section below. Let me know you're here watching, and let me know too if you're here or watching on the replay, if you got any suggestions or any ideas or anything, or any just really comments in general. Just leave those in the comment section for me. I really love to see those. And if you do have any questions or comments here while you're watching on the show, definitely put those into our comment section, the chat box there, and I'll try to highlight those and ask those as we move on later in the show as well too. So we just might feature one of your questions here, and this is a Q&A day here on the Sunday edition with Gardener Scott. So definitely be sure to be having your garden questions ready to go for when Scott's here as well too. So lots and lots of great gardening information for you just ahead here. All right. So yeah, we're just having a really great weekend here. The weather is just amazing where I live here in Southern Oregon. Just went out and did a little walk around the neighborhood, just kind of enjoying the morning sunshine, and it's looking like it's just going to be another bright, beautiful day here. I finished yesterday's show, and it was also really nice too. So I got to go out and do a lot of gardening work and everything. So I'm looking forward to another one of those days as well too here. So definitely going to be a really, really nice day to get some things done. I've got a lot of things to do. It's definitely, as I'm sure a lot of all you gardeners can relate to, is that, as we're coming out of winter going into spring, man, there are just so many things you've got to get done and got to do. And so I've got a list that's just a mile long right now of all these sort of, just chores and projects and, little fixing some things up and all of that, so I've got all sorts of things going on right now. So I really tried to get that list, get some check marks put next to some things here on that list. So I'll be probably getting right out to it as soon as we get done with the show here. I've also, again, too, we got lots of things to get started planting too. The weather is starting to kind of warm up on us, so I'm definitely hoping that we still got a little bit more cooler times there, as I've got, we're just getting some of these cool weather crops and everything getting planted out and everything too. So I've got a lot more of those that are actually getting out into the garden spaces as well right now too, and starting seeds up for some other things that'll be more warmer weather things that are coming down the road that I've got started here indoors. I've got peppers to pot up. We've got tomatoes that are actually just getting ready to roll, and we'll be potting those up really soon. So just tons and tons of great gardening things going on and things growing on right now too. So it's just really making this week, which is spring now coming up this week. We do got the first day of spring coming up here in just a few days, and just really looking forward to that. Really excited, for the season and everything. So getting to see everything to start to come together, it just really makes for really exciting times for all of us gardeners out there who are just really looking forward to this each and every year. I do kind of take a little bit of a break during the winter time. I do grow just a little bit, but most part I try to take a break during that time, because I do so much during the spring, summer, and fall season. So again, the kind of reason why I have such a big long list of things I've got to get done. So so it's always this, for us who've got, even those who live in the really colder regions and everything too, can really relate to, you just coming out of winter just ready to roll, ready to get going when it comes to growing and getting our gardens started and everything too. So it's just just a really fun time of year, even though there's a lot of work to be done. Even that is kind of fun and rewarding too, as we start seeing some of those projects in our gardens come together and come to life and everything. So all right, let's jump in here and see who we got with us today. We got all sorts of folks. I saw couple of folks in here just before we got the show started. We've got Heather Fox with us. I saw a comment from John Jude jumping in there. Wickershire Project, awesome to see you. Excellent. And then, of course, we do have our good friend and the awesomest moderator on YouTube, Jay Dixon, with us here from Ontario, Canada. So awesome to see you, Jay. Thanks for joining with us again this Sunday. We've got let's see here, we got Big Will Dog in there with us. Awesome. Princess Pamela's World, awesome. Hello, good to see you. Adam, awesome, good to see you too, Adam. Awesome. Got Skippy. All right, awesome. Happy Sunday to you as well. That's awesome to see you all here with us. Dusty Flats, you bet. All right, excellent. Say Dusty saying high of 31 today, feels like 19 with the wind. This must be Celsius there too. Yeah. Right. I'm thinking. I'm hoping anyways. All right. Let's see. And Jay's saying that our weather will hover just above and below freezing for a week with rain and snow. Oh, still waiting up there in the more colder areas for some of this spring weather that we're starting to see here. But yeah, been really nice here. As Adam says, our temps the last few days and for the next are in the 70s. So it's nice to be able to get out into the garden. Yeah, Adam's just right down the road from me. So we're experiencing that same weather right now. Oh no, you say it was Fahrenheit. Oh my. Yeah. Hopefully soon that'll change for you for sure. Yeah, nothing like being in those colder areas, definitely when you have to sit back and watch a lot of us start experiencing some of the warmer, nicer spring weather and everything. So spring's a little bit, the first day and the start of spring's a little bit different for all of us. So for sure. All right. Well, let's see here. So yeah, thanks everybody for joining with us too, and jumping into the chat box there. And I also kind of really want really here. Let me get here real quick. I just want to kind of mention before we move on real quick too, also about we did have a really great show yesterday too. If you are here joining with us on Sunday and haven't had a chance to check out our show yesterday, we had Jenna from Growfully with Jenna on with us yesterday. That was just a really awesome conversation. Just really enjoyed having her on and getting to meet Jenna. So if you haven't seen that interview, go check that interview out as well too. And then also I wanted to say that next week we do have an interview that I've already recorded with James Prigioni that we're going to play on next Saturday's show. So for the next Saturday's show, we'll be having James with us. So that was a really fun, really awesome interview. So you definitely don't want to miss out on that. And also joining us next Saturday as well too will be Joe and Corky from Grow Big TV. We'll have them on with us as well too. So just wanted to mention that there as well too, to look forward to the next Saturday show as well. And then go check out, if you haven't to, go to our YouTube homepage, and you can find links to all of our previous shows where we have many really awesome guests that we've had on the show so far. So really great to have Jenna on last week. So go check that out. And we'll be right back here in just a moment. And we'll get in the garden with our good friend, Mark Roche Colbert, MBC. Hey, gardeners. Thanks for tuning in to our show today. We'll be right back at it here in just a moment. I just wanted to take a second here to highlight our regular videos and features here on the Urban Gardener channel. Our weekly garden journals, and our incredible featured visits. All right. Yeah. So our Sunday question there, what is your favorite tomato variety? Yeah, it is that time, tomatoes. I got mine started up. They're popping up. I got lots of really great varieties I'm trying this year. So definitely jump in the comments there. Let us know what your favorite tomato variety is. And now it's time to check in with our good friend, Mark. All right. There he is. We got Mark joining us from the rooftop of Noble Rot. Nice 4-story building there downtown Portland, where Mark does some gardening for the restaurant there down below, right?
Yeah. And, I was really sad to hear about those low temperatures and rainy weather that some people are experiencing, because, man, we're just glorying in spring today here. Like, it's a blue sky day. It's so perfect. And we've come out of our own little, rough winter. So it's just great to be feeling good again and like you said, getting busy. It's 0 to 100 all of a sudden.
Yeah, exactly. You got to get raring to go and get out and get things going and get things done now. But yeah, it's really beautiful up there as well too. For everybody watching, I'm in Southern Oregon, and Mark is at the very opposite of the state in Northern Oregon. They're in Portland, Oregon as well too. So we're both getting that nice Oregon kind of pre-spring weather.
Woo, and everybody's out on the streets smiling, happy. It's just a total phase change. Everybody just went through a total phase change.
Yeah, yeah, right on, right on. Actually, real quick before we get you on to what you got going on in the garden for us, tell us a little bit more about the Noble Rot and what you do up there as far as gardening and taking care of that garden up there.
Yeah, this is a great project. We've been going at it for 17 years. I've been the gardener here for 17 years. And it's just a real pleasure to work with the culinary staff down below, the chefs, the managers. I love the interaction with them. We're trying to grow signature stuff. We're trying to grow stuff that they use a lot. We're trying to grow, experimental things for trying new stuff. So it's a wide range of herbs and veggies, and we're always mixing it up. But then we have some old standards and favorites we keep coming back to. So it's just fun to be in dialogue with the chefs. They're so creative, and I find as a gardener, it's just such an inspiration to me personally.
Yeah, yeah. So that's, because so you're growing for chefs in the restaurant down below. Everything you grow up there is basically grown and served in that restaurant, right? The Noble Rot.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yep. And literally, it's just one flight of stairs up. They just come running up with their scissors and their little baskets. The bar, I forgot to mention the bar. They're using all kinds of herbs and flowers and all kinds of stuff too. So everybody's got a hand up here, and it's just a short hop. It's just a quick run up the stairs, and boom, you're in your field. So that's cool.
Excellent, excellent, awesome. All right.
We'll settle this down where we're going to be doing our demo today.
Yeah, yeah. There we are. Awesome, awesome. So yeah, so what do we got growing on in the garden this week, Mark?
Well, today I'm mainly going to focus on herbs, but I did want to show a couple of seeds I'm going to plant right after this. After I go off camera, I'm going to be putting in some couple of broccoli family relatives, some rapini, which is like a loose non-heading type broccoli, and some yod fa, this is a Thai strain, but maybe from China as well. It's kind of a juicy stem broccoli. I think they sometimes call it aspabroc because it's like an asparagus. It's got that juicy stem is what it's used for. So that's going to be fun. I'm putting that in. But today I thought we'd talk about herbs because I don't know about you, but man, spring just brings the herbs on in an unequaled state of freshness. I mean, I got a pot of golden oregano back here, and I'm not usually a fan of oregano in terms of like eating it raw. It's a little too spicy for me, but this stuff is so delicious. I've been just snacking on it while I've been waiting, and just so fresh and tasty. And I see our French thyme. I'm looking at that right in a pot over a little ways off and on the roof, and it just looks so vibrant and green. Today I'm going to do something that I do a lot in the spring. Is I'm going to be dividing some chives because our chefs are up here all the time for chives, and chives are super easy to divide. So I just thought let's just do a lesson on chives and go through that. I'm going to angle the camera. First of all, let me show you. I've dug up. Here's a chive plant that I dug up, and the chefs did me a favor last night. They just cut it because I was up here yesterday. They weren't cut, and they just came up and cut them all last night. So that's a great time to divide because when you're pulling a plant apart and kind of doing a little bit of damage to the root structure, if you have less leaves, the leaves make a pull on the roots, right? They demand water from the roots. So if you can lower your leaf structure a little bit, there won't be as much pull on the roots and they have a little more time to recover. So I have just dug this up. Here's one of my favorite tools. This is an OXO trowel, and it's got a serrated edge. I don't know if you can see that. Let's see if we can get that edge in view. If you can see those sharp serrated.
There you go.
It's a real, it's a kind of a knife edge. This is a real sturdy tool. So I just literally, let's just get in there. So here's a pot. I'm just literally diving into this thing, and I'm pulling back a little bit. I'm kind of encircling the plant. And I'll show you what I get here in a second. Sometimes it's a piece of work, but that serrated edge really helps to cut through All right, let's come back up here. All right, so there it is. See, I got my chives at the top. I got a big root mass. Now to split it, you can do a couple of different things. Here I've kicked off a lot of the dirt, and this one was a small one, so I'm literally just like tearing it apart. I'm almost like grabbing the two sections and yanking. And those are going to be two new chive plants. If I have a big clump like this, I can sometimes take my serrated edge and just go right at it, like right down the middle, and literally saw through it. Right? You're going to do some damage, but as long as you get a section that's good and hanging together with roots, you're going to be fine. Some are going to fall out of the middle. Like here's a nice section, just sawed off right in the middle. I'm going to take a pot of soil. I was growing peppers in here last year. In fact, I just cut out the stem. So that was what was growing in it. Cut out the stem. I'm going to dump the soil in a container here. Let's get back down to the container. I got a plastic container, a bin here. There we go. And I'm just going to mash that up with, I can use that same tool that I was using. Just cut through whatever roots are in there. This is kind of a way to recondition the soil. I am going to have a clump of roots from the pepper, so I'm going to yank that out. Okay, get rid of that. And I'm going to just loosen up all the soil. I'm going to put, let's come back up for a little fertilizer here. I'm going to put some of this. This is Biofish. The numbers are 772, so that means it's got a good amount of nitrogen and phosphorus. Put about a half a cup in that pot, and that pot's about a 4-gallon pot. So I'm going to take about a half a cup, sprinkle that in, and mix it in well. So here I'm sprinkling, mixing it all in. Just getting those nutrients, getting that nitrogen ready for that green leafy growth. Right, I just want to encourage those chives to keep flourishing. And really, chives are one of those plants that once you've bought one, you really don't need to buy too many more, because you let it grow a season, it gets bigger, you multiply it. Maybe you divide it into two, which it multiplies into two. It's same division and multiplication and plant talk are the same. You do a division, but you actually multiply. So you get your initial plant, you wait a year, you split it in two, you wait a year, you split it in two, you got 4. You wait a year, you split it in 2, you got 8, and on and on. Pretty soon, you know, you're the chive seller in the neighborhood. All right, let's come on back up. So I'm going to refill my pot real quick. Sometimes I wear gloves when I'm doing a lot of this transplanting, but right now the old bare hands are going to be fine. I got another tool here I want to show you. This is a soil scoop. It's called the Dirty Little Digger. And this too has a serrated edge, but it's more like an ice cream scoop too. So this is kind of fun for collecting soil. Between your hand and one of these, it's easy to collect from a container. All right, so I got my refreshed soil back here. And now it's just as easy as taking this thing. We're going to plop it in, tuck it in. And that is that. Now this soil, I'm packing it down, right, to get good contact with the roots. But this soil is really wet right now. We're just coming out of some rain in the past week, so nothing's really started to dry out. I may check up on it a little bit over the next week or two. If I were doing this in the summer, I'd definitely be on it, watering all the time, or maybe even giving it some bottom water to drink up a little bit during the first week or two while it's establishing. But that's all you need to do. That's going to grow back, and we're going to have chives aplenty up here at Noble Rot. If you're ever in the Portland area, I encourage you to come on up to Rot. It's a great restaurant, and you know, occasionally, Enoch knows this, by twisting arms, one might be able to get a rooftop tour.
Yes,
right,
that's right. That's how it worked for me.
Yeah, that's how we met. Enoch wrote a note saying, I'd like a rooftop tour, and we were kind of busy at the time, so we wrote back. We're like, no, And then he came and dropped in one day, happened to be here, and he's like, "Hey, I heard the gardener was up here. Could we get a quick tour?" And I'm like, "Ah, sure, whatever. Just follow me around watering." That's
Yeah,
how we started off, right?
that's how it started off. Yep. People can still find that video, our very first video at the Noble Rot years ago, when I learned my first lesson in doing all of this sort of thing, where I get to go and do interviews and visit people and all of that, is persistence. Just
So
a
much
little persistence helps
that
out
works. That's
so much.
in life, right? You got to be persistent in gardening, but also in life.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Right on, Mark. Well, thank you so much for giving us that little lesson in chives there. I need to go out and start dividing my chives up as well too. And it was kind of a perfect discussion for you this week as well, because that's kind of one of my big projects I think I'm going to be getting done today, is getting my herb garden all straightened
Oh,
out and cleaned up and trimmed back from all of last year's old growth, and just get everything looking good. So maybe we'll divide some chives up as well too.
yeah, because you almost can't ever have enough chives, right? I mean, you just chop them up, put them in a salad, sandwich, whatever. So good. Soup.
Yep, that's
Yeah.
right. Excellent, Mark. Thank you so much for joining with us this week, and be sure to check out Mark and in his links down below as well too. And each and every Sunday we'll be joining with Mark, usually on video or something, but we will be getting Mark live with us on the third Sundays of the month, where we do our monthly book club. And this month's book is the book How to Forage for Wild Foods Without Dying by Ellen Zakos. So definitely come and check out our monthly book club as well too, on the third Sundays of the month, where me and Mark will do some co-interviewing of these authors and give everybody a chance to meet and discuss these books with all of these great authors that we'll have throughout the gardening season.
Yeah, I think we're due for April 21st, right?
April 21st, yes, and we'll have Ellen with us live on the show to talk all about this book. I think so far I got mine. It's so full of just some awesome pictures,
Oh,
really
good.
great information. And a lot of, we love pictures when it comes to gardening and growing things. The pictures in books really make a big difference, and this one's just loaded with them to really give you a great reference on these sort of wild plants that you can forage for, though, too. So I'm really excited about being able to talk to her about what's in this book.
Yeah, that's really, it's going to be stimulating, the whole series. I hope people just come along with us for each and every month, because there's going to be something good, and we got to keep learning as gardeners, right? We need to constantly sort of renew our inspiration and our knowledge. So this is a great way to do it. A book a month.
That's right. All right, well, we'll catch up with you next week, Mark.
All right, bye, Enoch. Great being with you as always. Take care. Happy gardening.
You got it. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
All right. Yes, awesome. It's great to have Mark back doing the In the Garden segment for us here now on our Sunday edition of the show. Just really awesome to have him again doing that and taking us to great locations, like up on the rooftop there at the Noble Rot downtown Portland there. He also teaches as well at a school, and teaches gardening and growing and all of that. So I'm sure that we'll get to catch up with Mark there at the school probably a few times, as well as his own home urban garden there in Portland as well too. So lots of great information and things to catch up with Mark here later on in the garden segment. So really awesome to have him joining with us. And then let me see here. I want to check and see. Oh, it looks like we've got Tony with us here for Simplified Gardening, saying, hey, all. Awesome to see you, Tony. Great. And awesome. Excellent. So let's get moving on with the show here. We've got a really special guest with us, going to be joining with us each and every second Sunday of of the month, we'll have with us Scott Wilson from the Gardener Scott channel. But this is the third Sunday of the month, but we're going to flip that around when it comes to next Sunday. So everybody, let's welcome Scott to the show. Hey, Scott, how we doing? It's great to see you.
Good to see you, Enoch. I'm actually doing pretty well, but I've been fighting a head cold all week.
Oh, no.
My voice is not what it normally is, but my head's pretty clear. I think all of the gardening information is still in my brain. We'll have to wait and see here in the next couple minutes.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So you were actually traveling just recently, right? Is this something you picked up while you were out traveling?
Yeah, I think so. Based on the time I caught it early in the week, I think it was just something I picked up at the airport. You know how that is, and hasn't been bad. It's just been in my head, in my sinuses, a little bit in my throat. Feel good, but don't necessarily sound good. So I'm willing to move forward.
Yes, right. I know there's nothing worse than that. So where were you traveling? What did you go somewhere special?
I went to see my son who lives in Louisiana, and I had a nice visit with my daughter-in-law and my granddaughter and my grandson, of course. And my most recent video, actually, I made in his backyard with his help. So this is the first video that I've done with my son and his family in it. So that was a lot of fun as well.
Oh, that's really great. That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. I'm actually looking forward to my very first grandchild coming up this summer. So we're really getting excited about that as we're almost there. I think we're a little over halfway there, and then we'll have my granddaughter will be with me, and so I'm kind of looking forward to maybe those sort of things in the future too. Is that when I was raising my daughter, I wasn't much in the garden. I didn't do much. I always grew plants, and she always knew me as a full plant house, that sort of thing, but we never spent time in the garden because I didn't do that at the time. And now's my chance to actually raise my granddaughter and give her this fun gardening experience from a young age. And I'm really, really excited about it.
Yeah, two of my granddaughters appear in my videos from time to time, and I love getting them in the garden. They love coming to the garden. So when you see them early, it really is just one of those things I come to expect. And so I wish it were more, but I love every minute that they're in the garden.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's one thing too, and on yesterday's show, I was talking with Jenna from Growfully with Jenna.
Great
and
channel.
we were really awesome gardener. And we were talking about a lot of, what we get out of the garden more so than, just the food, a lot of it, can be really therapeutic in a sense, so there's this time we spend and we get this really great connection, one-on-one with nature and all of that around us. But then to be able to kind of take that to that next level, and be able to share that very same experience with your kids and grandkids, it's just really something special. It just takes it even makes it even more and more special, that whole garden space and experience.
Absolutely. And I think when you start small, it works better. I didn't really get into gardening seriously until my kids were teenagers. And by then it was too late. They were already doing their own thing. They didn't help out much, but they are now in their older age starting to get involved with gardening. So I think it would have been fun to have them in the garden as kids, but I do enjoy having them in the garden now as adults. And I'm going to reference Skippy's comment.
I was just about to put that up here.
My son has his own YouTube channel, Ready Set Homestead, and he's doing quite well, having some success with that. But he has a crazy beard, full beard.
Oh, right.
I have often I'll do the No Shave November. So if you go back a few years, and my later November, early December videos, you can see me with a beard, but with my gray hair and lighter color hair, my beard just doesn't stand out. So I typically don't go with the full beard, but my son is bearded.
Right.
a hirsute man.
Yeah, yeah. I've actually been pondering letting it fill out just a little bit more, but I don't grow a very good beard, so I don't know. Maybe I get a little bit more of the goatee growing and get it little more full, but yeah, there's no full beard, big beard for me in my future. I don't think either.
I don't think you need to feel bad.
That's right. That's right. Let's see here. Oh, Dusty's saying it's cool in Colorado. We had a few snowflakes. Is that in Colorado? Did you have snow there recently? There
Yeah, we got
is that
so my house actually got less than the city. So I only got about 8 inches of snow. But in town, about 10 miles away, they were getting between 12 and 18 inches of snow. So it was a big storm. Of course, snow on all my beds, snow on the ground right now. It is supposed to warm a bit this week, and most of it'll melt. But we literally so far this season have had twice as much snow as we normally get. So this has really been a wet winter.
Yeah, yeah. It's and again too, it's that, I was kind of mentioning that just a little bit earlier. It's really that time of year also too, where, it's just the weather is just so different for people, that there's a lot of us gardeners who are starting to get the weather and get out and it's looking nice and we're
Good
starting
for
things
you.
outdoors and all of that. And then there's the folks, we had a commenter earlier saying that, it's like still 31 degrees where they're
Yeah.
living at high temperatures. And I'm like, wow, so it's kind of tough to get out and start talking about how awesome it is to be gardening right now when there's so many folks who are still kind of waiting for that.
Yeah, I had actually, until I lost my voice, was planning to do a video in conjunction with this latest storm, just a short, to say uh, what plants you should plant in March, because you see all those videos right now saying these are the 10 plants you should start in March, or these are the 6
Yeah,
plants every gardener can start in March. And my video
yeah.
was going to be me sitting in the snow in a snowstorm saying, I'm not going to tell you what plants to grow in March because I can't have anything in my garden in March. And every
Right.
garden is different. Be careful about listening to other gardeners that tell you what you can do, because for
Yeah.
many of us, it just doesn't work.
Right. That's right. And again, yeah. So I see it's tough to do those types of videos for sure because
Yeah.
again, just being this time of year, it's so, and any time of year really. I mean, all of our growing regions and things are really kind of different.
Yeah.
Even within zones and all of that. We're all kind of dealing with different environmental factors, and weather differences that really kind of affect what we can plant and when. So it's kind of
Yeah.
tough to say what you can do. But
And you can still get out in the garden. I've got bird feeders. The birds are starting to show up. I've cleaned out all my nesting boxes, and some of the birds are actually starting to explore the boxes, and we'll probably build nests soon. So I'm feeding the bird, or I'm filling the bird feeders. I'm getting ready for the wildlife that's going to start showing up in my garden. I can't put any
mm,
plants in, but that doesn't mean I can't be out in the garden on the nice
yeah.
days, at least doing something.
Yeah, yeah, excellent. Yeah, okay. And this is now about time. I want to remind everybody, if you do have any gardening questions or if any questions pop up during the conversation, definitely get into the comment section there, drop them in, and I'll make sure that we get those questions in for Scott. I think we'll start kind of right there. I think in a sense too. I'll just ask, I'll kind of get us moving and ask you about, so each and every year and this kind of pops up as people are talking about when they're trying to plan to get their when they're planning to get their garden started. And could you maybe talk a little bit, because I know you worked on the new USDA cold hardiness zone map and help them
Yeah.
do the zone map. Maybe touch on that just a little bit also, but what really is the difference in what we're really looking at, or I don't know if that's necessarily the question, but there's the
That's a good way
hardiness
to say it.
zone map, and then there's a last frost date.
Exactly.
So
And
maybe we can kind of expound on that a little bit.
that's a key differentiation. And so you probably get questions like this, just like I do, that say, I'm in zone 7A. When should I start my plants? Or I'm
Yes.
in zone 6B. When should I start my garden? And there's no correlation at all between what zone you're in and when you should start your garden. The
Yeah.
hardiness zones are determined purely on the average coldest winter temperature. And that temperature for me happened in December this year. For some people, it might be February. For some people, it might be November. It varies. And that single date is what makes the difference in determining what your zone is. When you put your plants in the ground should really be determined by your last frost date. And I've got a video on this that goes into it in depth because there are a number of frost dates that we should all be aware of. There's a 10% frost date, there's a 50% frost date, and there's a 90% frost date. And what most of us reference, so if you do a quick online search saying, what is my last frost date for Medford, Oregon? You're going to get a bunch of answers and it'll give you whatever it is. And that's what you then work from when you look at the seed packets, because a lot of the seed companies will put on the seed packet when to start the seeds. And it almost always references the last frost date. And so if you look at a packet of pepper seeds, for instance, they'll usually say start indoors 8 to
Yeah.
10 weeks before the last frost date. It might
Yeah.
say start indoors 10 to 12 weeks before putting outside, but most of them reference the last frost date. Start your tomato seeds indoors 6 to 8 weeks before the last frost date. Transplant your onions outside 3 to 4 weeks before the last frost date. Plant your cucumbers 2 to 3 weeks after the last frost date. So that's why it's
Yeah.
such an important date, because all of the plants we're putting into our summer garden should be put in when the soil is appropriate, when the air temperature is appropriate. And the last frost date is really a base guideline for determining in your calendar what the actual planting dates are going to be.
Yeah, because as anybody knows, and this gets referenced a lot, because when I see people talk about those sort of dates, or even you hear people say, "Well, this happened to me this year, or that happened to me that year," that sort of thing. And that's the thing we all have to understand when it comes to these sort of things, is there's got to be some sort of flexibility in things,
Yeah.
because the weather is unpredictable. And if not more so in the recent years, as we've seen, it can be very
Yeah.
unpredictable. So
I encouraged planning with a buffer period. Here in
yeah,
Colorado, the weather is just so extreme. So my last frost date is May 18th. So that's the average. So 50% of the time, the last frost date will actually be before that. 50% of the time, the last frost will be after that. And so then you get into the 90% last frost date, which for me is like May 28th. And so 90% of the time, the last frost date has occurred before May 28th, historically. But there's still a 10% chance, historically, meteorologically, that I could get a frost after May 28th. And so I add 2 weeks to my average date of May 18th, and I just don't plan to put the tomatoes, the peppers, the squash, the cucumbers, all those plants that'll be damaged by cold. I don't even plan to put those outside until the first week of June every year, because you're right. Things are changing so much, and there's always that year that affects your plants. So just give yourself a buffer, assuming your season is long enough, and you should be able to be okay with that.
Yeah. Or if you're, inclined enough to do the work and spend the time to be able to cover and to protect and do certain things, maybe you can extend things out, which is, I think, one of the strategies I'm going to have to try this year, because especially with my tomatoes, just specifically them, because I'm trying to get some production and get some plant growth before I really start hitting the heat of summer. Because it seems like in my region, it just flips like a switch.
Oh yeah,
You
Southern
know,
Oregon
it's
gets
just
so hot overnight.
just overnight, and then all of a sudden I'm starting to see these, really high temperature and high temperature weeks,
Yeah.
and sometimes in those first weeks of June.
It's
So
great
if
to
I
go
was
have a dip in the Rogue River, but it's not good for your garden.
That's right, exactly. No doubt. And yeah, so I mean, and so that's the thing. I mean, and depending on your situation, what you can do and strategize for that. But if you're looking to just put things out there and you're just, and not that inclined to protect plants and stuff, it's always best to kind of give a buffer, like you said, and maybe just push a week or two from that last frost date that you get.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And definitely, when it comes to warmer weather plants. Let's see here. I think we got a question here
Okay.
from, and I think maybe let's kind of see where we go here. Question: We will be planting 7 to 8 different melons. My seed save efforts will end up as a mixed cross. Does this mean I'll have a better zone tolerant crossed melon?
Possibly. I have a video from this last year talking about land race gardening. And the
Yeah.
concept of land race gardening is exactly that. It's growing a number of different varieties, saving the seeds, knowing that you're going to have cross pollination, knowing that those plants are going to be hybrids. And then you plant the seeds. And the next year, you pay attention. Which of those plants do the best? Which ones you like best? And then save those seeds. And so it takes years to stabilize the genetics, but the concept is that you could very well be creating a new variety that works in your garden better than any of the seeds that you're buying from a seed company. To include the
Yeah.
color and the taste, especially with melons.
Mhm.
That's how some of the melons that we buy have been developed. Often it's on purpose. Occasionally it's by accident when a hybrid develops. So it could be a small melon, a different color melon, a sour melon. I mean, there's all kinds of fruit that could result, but then you save the seeds. And I think it's a fun way to garden, just
Yeah.
letting nature decide what's going to do well in your garden.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, it's you developing those genetics for your locality is always going to get you stronger and more the more well adapted a plant is, the better it's going to grow and the better your results are going to be for what you're looking to get, what you're looking to harvest from them. So
And you can even do that with the heirloom seeds that are expected to come back true every year. You asked the question earlier about favorite tomato variety, and
yeah.
the black Krim is my favorite. And I've been saving seeds from black Krim tomatoes for many, many years. And I'll usually plant 3 black Krim plants in my garden. The ones I save the seeds from are
Mhm.
the plant that does best each year. So even though it's always a black Krim tomato plant and it's always black Krim tomatoes, over the last 10 years or so, my black Krim tomato plants are actually doing better than they used to because I'm focusing on which plants I save the seeds from.
Yeah, exactly. And same for me. And that's one of the things I always say, in whatever it is that I'm saving seeds from, I'm always, whether it's the lettuce I let go to seed or the radishes I have, I always look for the one that I want to pick the most, the one I want to eat
Yeah.
the most, and I leave it alone. It's
That's
it's my
hard, but that's the way to do it.
it's my champion, so I want the champion seeds, and so I let those, always let those go. So it's hard. It's too tempting to grab those really good ones, especially those delicious looking tomatoes, but those are always going to be your best seed and your seed genetics
You'll
right
eat the
there.
tomato. Just when you finally eat the tomato, make sure you're saving all of the
There,
seeds,
there you
putting
go.
them in
Yeah,
your gut.
yeah, definitely. let's see here. Jay was saying that their favorite is black crim tomato as
Yeah.
well too. Yeah,
And so
I
looking at
love.
some of the comments, like Adam's comment, I saw another one from someone was talking about the eagle on the mountain.
Oh yeah, let me see that
And
one. Here we
so,
are.
that's something that I really encourage, especially for new gardeners that are starting gardens. Talk to gardeners in your area,
Yeah,
because when we uh, are starting our gardens here in my area of Colorado, the experienced gardeners say don't plant until after Memorial Day, and Memorial Day is the end of May. Like I say, I use the first week of June, but many regions have those. It's not necessarily an old wives' tale. It's a tried and
like a
true
lore.
tip from gardeners who have been doing it for a long time. And so follow some of those tips when you're trying to figure out what will do best in your garden. Use the local experts that are around that'll almost always be glad to share you all of those lessons that they've learned.
Yeah, and also too, in a direction I always point people to is, locating and finding your local extension
Oh, absolutely.
in those places as well too, because those are the places where you're going to find so much of that information. Your last frost dates, or they're going to really be tuned into that, whether seasonally you should be giving or letting on those dates. and
Yeah,
and also, as we're talking about, seeds that grow, or varieties that grow really
absolutely.
well in these areas, they're going to know a lot about those as well. you know
Yeah, I'm going to grow some new beds that will be filled with strawberries this year. And so I ordered a number of different varieties of strawberry. And even though I became a master gardener 20 years ago, it's still my go-to source for knowing what's recommended. And so I checked out the extension recommendations for my area of which strawberries would do best. And when I was shopping, that's what I chose. Extension really has some good suggestions if you want to try to choose something that will work.
Yeah, so definitely it's always worthwhile to find that information. So you can simply just Google local extension, for your area with a zip code, and you should probably be able to find a
Oh yeah,
local office that shouldn't be too far from you anyways, or at least a phone call away if you need to do that.
yeah,
Let's see here. Brampton Garner mentioned something I thought was kind of really interesting. I think is a good idea too, because I was mentioning about how,
yeah.
I'm
I
going to
saw that
push
too.
my tomatoes and stuff and be, kind of maybe take the risk of putting them out just a little bit earlier. And she was mentioning that, good ideas to just kind of maybe even do twice as many starts,
Yeah,
or put,
that's a great
another.
idea.
Yeah.
Last year, and I've commented it on some of my live streams and a few of my videos. Eli from In the Garden with Eli and Kate and I did a series of videos last year. She's in Scotland, I'm in Colorado, and we grew the same varieties of tomatoes in our two locations. And to make the video that was going to match with hers, I actually put tomatoes in the ground weeks earlier than normal. And it was purely to make the video, purely just to talk about tomatoes. My real planting date was a couple weeks after that. And I did save tomatoes to put in for the real garden. By the end of the season, it was so obvious the difference between the plants that were started too early and the ones that were started on time. The on time tomato plants were bigger, they produced more fruit, they were healthier, and the ones that started when the soil was too cold and it just wasn't the right time just never quite caught up and never gave me the right results. So if you're experimenting with
Yeah.
different beds and different temperatures and different times, great advice. Stagger it and then figure out what works best for you.
Yeah, yeah, because soil temperature is a big part of this whole idea, is,
Yeah.
getting your plants out, especially those warmer weather crops. It's definitely, you want nice warm soil temperature. I mean, what range we looking at for about tomatoes? This is what we're going to get
And
started
so
earliest.
tomatoes, you really want the soil temperature to be at least 60 degrees Fahrenheit. That's about 15.5 Celsius. And if it's colder than that, then the plant could be stunted. It really could be affected. Ideally, you want to wait until the soil is 70 degrees Fahrenheit, about 21 Celsius. And that's what peppers need too. And
Yeah.
so peppers, squashes, tomatoes will do better if you can wait until the soil is 70 degrees before you put them in the ground. Between 60 and 70, that's really the target. You don't want to wait until it gets too hot, but you also don't want to start when it's too cold.
Yeah. Yeah. So definitely in the case of some of that too, if you're also trying, I mean, you could always again too maybe pot up and maybe grow a little bit more, give another week or two if you're getting them started indoors. So I
Sure.
start my tomatoes, peppers, and those sort of things indoors. So maybe another strategy would be to pot them up just a little bit larger for an extra week or two before you take
Sure.
them outdoors. All right. So let's see. Let's talk a little bit more. I mean, tomatoes, peppers, these are the things that people are really, really into. And that's our question too. So if anybody's watching right now and you haven't jumped in and let
Yeah.
us know what your favorite tomato varieties are, it's kind of what we're talking, what our question was for the week here this week. But in talking about tomatoes, another strategy that works really well. That a lot of people do is burying tomatoes deep. And talk about how that's possible and what we're really doing there.
Yeah, so tomatoes are one of the few. There are a few others, but it's the most common one we grow in the garden that can actually grow roots along the stem. And contrary to a common misconception, people often think that it's those little hairs on the tomato that turn into roots, and it's really not. There are little cell structures on the stem called adventitious cells, and those adventitious cells will turn into roots when they're warm, when they have oxygen, and when they have moisture. And so you'll see this in a garden with tomato plants in particular. If it's a really muggy, wet summer, you'll often see roots start to grow from the stem above the ground. And it's those
Yeah.
same cells. When it's buried, those roots now become part of the plant structure and can absorb nutrients and help the plant grow bigger. And so the common practice of burying the plants is to get more roots growing along the stem so that you have a bigger root area to absorb water and absorb nutrients and help the plants grow. A lot of it does depend on the season. Here in Colorado, where it's pretty dry, one of the things that I've done in the past is to plant the tomato plants at an angle, to actually bury them,
Yeah.
but so that the whole stem is only about 3 or 4 inches deep. Because of the way I water and the way I take care of my plants, I know that the the bed tends to dry out very deep in
Yeah.
the soil because we just don't get any rain. And so often I don't water enough. And I know that the top 6 inches to 8 inches of my bed are going to have adequate moisture. So I'll bury my tomatoes at an angle, relatively shallow, to get a lot of roots to absorb that soil moisture. In the past,
Yeah.
I would bury vertically, and
Right.
the root ball would be maybe 12 to 18 inches deep. And what I
Yeah.
would find at the end of the season is that some of those roots had often dried and died. Purely my area, but in areas with more rainfall and with deeper beds, you can do vertical deep planting and you'll have the roots grow all along the stem.
Yeah, yeah. And and if you do, I suppose, have, soil moisture levels that are all right, I suppose, deeply like that, if you're doing vertically. I used to watch this one channel where his method would be to grow his plants, and he'd get them pretty good size, and they'd have stems growing up the side, and he'd bury them all down so deep that the stems were
Sure.
like, it looked like new plants coming
And
up.
they essentially are at that point. They're
Yeah, yeah.
clones, but they are developing their
All
own root systems.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then you get these big giant plants and just building this big huge root structure and root system, out of all of that. So it's kind of amazing how tomatoes can work like that. It's one of
Yeah.
those kind of really cool things about it, and being able to do that.
Now, if you have a short season, and I've been experimenting with this recently in the last few years, when you bury the plant, it's going to stress the plant and it's going to take energy from the
Mm,
plant to grow those roots. And that's energy that might normally go into the plant growth. And so I I've determined, at least in my garden, that if I bury the stems deeper, it cuts off about a week or two at the end of the season. In other words, it takes about a week or two longer for those
yeah,
plants to flower and fruit. And so instead, what I like to do, and you'd kind of mentioned it earlier, especially when you're trying to get the right planting time and the soil temperature, is I'll pot up into a bigger pot indoors to try to develop a good early system of roots. And then when I go out in the garden, I'm not burying deeply. I might bury an inch or two of the stem, but there's
yeah,
enough roots in that pot that they can take over the bed. The plant can get growing, and those plants that are put in the garden that way are the
yeah.
first to flower and the first to fruit.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good thing to be thinking about there too, and especially if you're in a more shorter growing season, you're definitely gonna wanna kind of not cause stress in order to and because that only shortens your growing season even more so at that point. So if you got a nice long one, maybe you can play around with and experiment with some of those ideas of going deep and doing those sort of things. But if you're kind of crunched for time in your season, then it's probably best just to make sure that they're ready, set to go when you put them
Yeah.
right outside. Let's see here, and a question here too on I overwintered stems from last year's tomato
Yes.
plants indoors. Those branches have grown out and are fruiting, but they are not as red as when grown outdoors. Why is that?
So it could be the amount of light. There is a light component that influences the color of the tomatoes. It could be, what is that? Is it the lycopene? I forget what it is that actually causes most of the color growth or color change. But I would say it's probably just the intensity of the light indoors is not as intense as the light outside. It could also possibly be some nutrients that are a little bit different than grown outside. I've noticed that too. I actually haven't really thought much about it. In the I grew tomatoes in my grow tent last year, and noticed they were a bit paler, and I just attributed to that uh, decrease in the intensity of the light that they were getting.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Let's see here. Oh, there was another one before. I think it was about something a little different. Let's see here. Question Wickershire was asking, my bare root peach tree did not leaf last year or show signs of life this year. I scratched the cambium layer. It was dry, brown, dead. We
Ah,
snapped the stem open, full of yellow. Okay, so that what? Okay, I didn't see a question. I'm sorry. Oh wait, no, here we are. Here we are. I think this
okay.
is it. Should I avoid peach trees here, or is it possible we bought it like that?
Um, of course, it's possible that you bought it with an insect infestation, but this is another great thing to take to your local extension office because
Mhm.
there are a number of fruit trees, peaches in particular, that have very specific pests. And I'm not sure which yellow grub it might be that is inside the peach tree, but chances are your master gardeners and your local extension office will know exactly what that pest is. And the key is that many of the fruit tree pests that we have in our gardens will actually overwinter in a completely different tree. And so you'll see this in areas of the Northwest, here along the Rocky Mountains. We have some pests that actually live in fir trees or pine trees during the winter, and then they come out and attack the fruit trees in spring and summer. And so that's why it's important to try to identify what that specific insect is, because if it's an insect that is coming from someplace else, from another tree, then planting another peach tree will probably increase the likelihood that that tree will be impacted. If it's one of those insects that has its complete life cycle within the tree, so you'll have the adult that will often bore into the bark, lay eggs, and then the eggs will hatch, and the larva will eat, and that's what the grubs are, that the larva will eat the tree from the inside out. And so if it's that kind of insect, then removing the tree and just waiting a
Yeah.
year can break the life cycle. And you should be able to grow peaches again, because whatever that pest was has died out in your garden. And so, first thing, of course, just to identify exactly what it is, to determine where it's coming from and how it survives the winter. And that's the best way to determine if you're going to grow again.
Yeah. Yeah. That's again too, those extensions are just really a really wealth of knowledge when it comes to just things that could be really particular to your area, so
Exactly.
again too, it's just another great focus of that they do is help you with those pests and those sort of things that you might be dealing with. And that's not just these bug pests too, if you got some like fungal issues or
Sure.
these sort of other types of things that you're noticing with your plants, you could always take samples and put them seal them up in a nice little baggie and bring them over, if you've got a question of what they are and what it is that you're dealing with too. So
Yep.
yeah, really great to do. Oh, and it was actually I was thinking about too, as we were talking about bugs and trees and all of that little kind of maybe side thing. And I don't know if you've been looking into it or that is we're about to see this I don't know if it's once in a century or a couple of centuries cicada invasion this
Multiple
year.
different ones, like the
Yeah.
7-year and the 14-year and like the 15-year are all happening
So
at the same time.
yeah, yeah. So this
Yeah.
whole region of like the Midwest to the East Coast are just going to be inundated with
Yeah.
these huge cicadas. And one of the things I was kind of interested in is what and how they affect tree because they go into trees, right?
They do go into trees, but the adult cicadas, other than just covering the tree, they're not eating the leaves. They're not
Yeah,
eating the plants at all. It's purely a mating ritual, and it takes years for them to reach the point where they're going to emerge. They've already done all their eating. They've already done all the surviving. They're just
yeah,
emerging and mating and dying in a very short period of time, and
yeah.
they're not going to be eating trees or leaves or anything else.
Yeah, yeah. So that's one of the things I thought would be kind of important to mention about that because
Sure.
this is going to be a big question as people start seeing these things emerge and start to hear that. I don't know if you've ever been around a
Oh
large
yeah.
cicada infestation. It's like I don't know what you describe the sound, but it's just a shrill kind of
A
just
cacophony.
echoing. Yeah, it's just an amazing kind of sound when they're all just kind of making these mating sounds all at once. And so I mean, and you hear and see such a large amount of them, especially as they start to collect around on the ground. You get to
Yeah.
wonder like what are they doing and how are they affecting these trees and these sort of things. And from what I also understand, I believe too, is that again, like you said, they're down under the ground for, in some cases, up to 17 years, depending on the type of brood that they are.
Mhm.
So in their larva, I guess it would be the larva stage that they stay in for all of that time, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, I think the I'm trying to remember. I actually saw a documentary on this, like a National Geographic thing. I think as the larva emerges, that's when it molts for the final time, and then
Yeah.
the skin hardens, and that's when the adults climb the trees
Yeah.
and their wings extend and dry out, and then that's when they start flying and crawling around.
Yeah, yeah. And so then it's all of these years this larva is down under, it's eating from roots though
Yeah.
too. And but at this point too, is this isn't damaging to trees either? Like there's
Well,
some sort of like,
it does damage the tree, of course. Anything that's going to eat the roots. It's
right,
just that most of the areas that the cicadas are emerging in are forested, big trees, and
yeah.
so the little bit that they're eating is not
So that's
damaging.
kind of what I
It's
was
not
thinking,
killing
is
the tree.
maybe they're just eating off of like water roots versus
Yeah.
larger, more established main stem roots type of.
Yeah, they're not like, here in Colorado, we've got pine beetles, and in my garden right now, didn't think they would appear again, but they did. I've got raspberry cane borers. There are a number of insects that will eat the tree from the inside out and kill it.
Yeah,
Or in my case, the canes, they'll eat it from the inside out, and the cane dies. And
yeah,
so the cicadas aren't that way. They're in the soil. They're not burrowing into trees, and that's why
yeah,
they're not killing trees by the millions, because there are millions of them
yeah.
that could damage trees if that's what they actually did.
It's just so hard to imagine though too, that here we are going about our lives doing everything we're doing, and down below us there are these these bugs that are living for, like it said, 17 years. How
Yeah.
amazing is it to have a lifespan as a bug, I'd say, to have that kind of long lifespan, but to be doing everything it's doing for all these years. I mean,
Yeah.
imagine all the things we're
Crazy.
doing in 17 years of lifespan, and then they come out and do their thing. So
Yeah.
just kind of an amazing thing. But I know we're going to be hearing probably a lot more about this, and you'll probably be getting questions again too as these things start to emerge. And
Oh,
some
sure.
people, they're just really they're new to them and their garden spaces and that sort of thing too. Because I'm sure people will worry about whether or not they're eating their actual gardens too. And these are just primarily trees. They get into the trees and do their mating, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's see here. Another question. Moving on to kind of something more as we get warmer in the season. But does planting clay pots in the ground and fill with water work?
It
I think we're
can.
talking
Those
about
are
maybe Oyas.
those are called Ollas, the OLLA. And I actually, I meant to do the video last year, but just never got around to it. I have Oyas on my deck right now that I made myself from clay pots to show how they work and to actually demonstrate it. It's The concept is you fill the clay pot, and the water permeates the clay and then gradually seeps into the soil. And so it's a gradual way to keep the soil moist at root level, because most of the pot is buried in the ground. It's just the top portion that you fill the pot with. And yes, especially in dry regions, they can help keep the lower levels of the soil moist so that you don't have to water as often. But if you buy them, they can be quite expensive. That's why I've been working on showing how to do DIY Oyas that don't cost as much. And it does take up space. So when they're buried, that's soil that roots aren't growing. That's a
Mhm.
space that you don't have plants growing. And so it's a trade-off, I think, because the most effective ones are the bigger ones, the ones that actually hold a substantial amount of water. But at the same time, you're losing a substantial amount of your soil so that Oya can do its job. So yes, they work. It's just, I think the more important question is, do you need them? And are you willing to trade in that soil space and
Hmm.
instead of just watering more often, or maybe more importantly, watering deeper more often to ensure that the root level has all of the water that it needs.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And that is again too like one of my more primary concerns when I'm growing in my spaces because I'm really, I've only got select amount of like bed space that I can have, and several of mine are actually elevated beds, and so I would, I might use like maybe in my larger, more elevated beds, maybe something down the center of it as far as
Exactly.
Oyas are concerned, in order to kind of, grow around them a little bit. But when it comes to containers and that sort of thing, that's a huge trade-off.
Yeah,
That's just too big of a trade-off in order to do that. And
I
that's where
agree.
I really kind of, again, too, I recommend folks to, again, we've got a few different videos on our channel about it. And if you are growing in limited spaces and you're primarily using containers in warmer regions too, really, we use what are basically wicking earth buckets.
Oh, sure.
So so I and I've seen other versions of these too, and I like to also tell people like I found, well, the ones that we use are the best because you can get some commercial kind of like what they would call self-watering type of things that you can put into a bucket, and you can buy these things. But again, it's very similar to the Oya. You're trading off the space inside of the container for, doing that. So we utilize a 2 bucket system.
That's a
So
good
we get
idea.
that full amount of grow space out of that 5 gallons of that bucket. And then it's got a little net pot on the bottom that reaches into what would be the second bucket that it sits into. And then that can be your water reservoir.
Yep.
And then those, it's really, so I grow so many different containers and use a lot of those. And I only really got to go around maybe once every couple of days and make sure they're filled or flushed or that sort of thing, in order to make sure that they're constantly staying at a good soil moisture level,
Hmm.
because that's so important, if you're growing in containers, is to not let these things dry out. Letting a container dry out is not a good thing.
That's right.
Believe me, I've learned this lesson many
All
times.
all of us have who have been doing this for a while.
Yes. So let's see. Trying to catch up here. Oh, let's see.
There you go.
Val,
Yeah, it's the one I saw too.
I got here late. Any suggestions for starting sweet potatoes
Sure.
indoors? Northern
Yeah,
Arizona, high desert.
have a video, I think from 2 years ago. I took a sweet potato from the supermarket and then showed the whole process of starting it indoors all the way to harvest. And easy to do. The way that sweet potatoes grow, they're not like regular potatoes. Regular potatoes, you bury the potato or a chunk of the potato where you've got a couple of the eyes, and then the plant grows from those eyes, and the tubers, which are just an extension of the stem, basically, are what we harvest as potatoes. You can't plant a sweet potato and expect the same thing to happen. You have to
Mhm.
take the sweet potato, and you can submerge it in water. You can put it in a pod, and you wait for those little plants to grow from it. And then you clip those off. Those are slips, or what we call them. And then you take those slips and you have to root those slips. And so the way I found works best is to take your sweet potato and half bury it horizontally in a flat or a bucket or whatever you have. And that will generate the sweet potato to start sending up those stems that you will then cut off, stick those into a glass of water, and roots will develop.
Mhm.
Or, and I've tried it this way as well, this is actually the way I prefer. If you take the slip and you put it into a glass of water, roots will develop, and then you have to take it out of the water, put it into a pot, and add potting mix for it to keep growing. Or if you're lucky enough to live in an area with very warm, moist conditions, you can take that slip and put it directly into your garden. I prefer, instead of doing it from water and then into soil is to just go ahead and cut off that slip, put it into moist potting soil. And as it develops the roots, those roots are growing into the potting mix. And then that's what you transplant out into the garden. And so those are, the most common methods. And there really aren't any tips other than it needs to be warm, and you need to give that continual moisture to the sweet potato to stimulate it to start that growth. And then you got to take that extra step, which is actually to get those slips to root before you have anything growing in your garden.
Yeah, definitely. And so you skip the water step and just basically pull the slip off and then stick it right into some soil.
Yeah, what I found, and I think this is just so common, anytime you are planting a bare root plant, especially a herbaceous small seedling that is bare root, you're going to damage the roots when you transplant it. And so you've gone to all this effort to get these roots to grow along the stem, and then you've got to put it in soil. And by putting it into soil, you increase the likelihood of the roots breaking, the roots being damaged. And even if you're going directly into your garden, the same thing happens. You're going to damage roots if you're doing the bare root planting. Whereas if you allow those roots to develop in the pot, just a small pot, a yogurt cup is good enough, then you can put that whole root clump into your garden and have much less root damage.
Yeah. And again, too, kind of we touched on a little bit earlier, and is that these are really a warm weather crop, and soil temperature is really key here as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, the biggest problem I had when I grew them last were just waiting for the soil temperature to get to the point that I could put them in the ground. And my season just isn't short enough. I was able to get a harvest. They were smaller than I would have liked them to be, but that's just because I had to harvest because the frost was coming. And if I had another month, I would have had big, gorgeous, beautiful sweet potatoes. And that's why they grow so well, like in the US South, because that's long, hot, moist conditions, and you can grow those huge sweet potatoes with very little effort.
Yeah. And again, did you mention, so what about the difference between growing, say, like your sweet potato slips through, like you see people with the poke some toothpicks in it and put it in some water, or versus doing just laying it in soil and kind of burying it halfway in soil.
It's kind of like if you've ever taken the avocado seed and you put toothpicks in it and stick it in the cup of water. You could do that with the sweet potato. For me, it's more work. You got to keep the water level up. You got to keep it from falling in and damaging the roots. And I just find it's easier just to lay it horizontally on some potting soil. And it's much easier to just take a mister to keep that soil moist occasionally.
Yeah.
It's less work for me than trying to poke it and put it in a cup of water without breaking it when I take it out.
Yeah, I've tried it both ways myself too, and I just seem to think that they come up faster and a little bit better when I use a potting soil versus doing it in the water. Yeah. And let's see here. Big Will Dog was saying, could a paper towel roll be used to keep root damage from happening at all with potato slips?
Sure. I'm not aware that I've seen that. But absolutely, you could either put the paper towel roll like in a cup and then have the slip dangling in the water above it, and then transplant the whole thing in the garden. Sure, that's possible. Or you could just take the paper towel holder, fill it with potting mix, put the slip in it, and let the roots develop and plant the whole thing in the garden. The nice thing about using something like a paper towel roll is it's biodegradable, and you can plant the whole thing without worrying about any root damage. And as long as you keep it moist, the roots will grow through it. I've seen this problem with newer gardeners in particular, is they don't water enough when they use a paper towel or a toilet roll, and once it dries out, it's hard, and the roots are not going to grow through it. So you
Mhm.
have to keep that whole area nice and moist so that that cardboard stays moist and starts to break down, and then the roots can grow through it.
Yeah, yeah, and all of them worms are probably gonna really love it too if you got a lot of good, lively soil, and all them worms just love chewing on some cardboard. So
That's right.
they're gonna help you break it down around the root system anyways, as well as those roots just pushing around through it. So it's a great, like you said, a great idea. And I did a little short video actually, just around or just coming out of the pandemic. And I was like, what to do with all of those paper towel rolls that you have now from from when everybody was getting the toilet rolls and all of that. So, but it's a good way to kind of recycle those and use those too. So that's a great idea. All right. And so kind of let's see, we're kind of talking a little bit also about tomatoes and all of that, and peppers. How about any sort of like seed starting tips or anything like that too, as people are probably getting ready to start seeds up too?
Sure.
It's that time of year.
Yeah, like we were talking about the soil temperature when you put the plants out, the soil, or not the soil, the germination temperature is important for seeds as well. And so the peppers specifically will germinate faster and germinate better if you can have them in a tray or pots that are on a heating element of
Yeah.
some type. A heat pad that is sold for seed starting is ideal because it matches the size of most of the trays we're using,
Hmm.
and it's noticeably different. I
Yeah.
started my peppers a couple weeks ago, excuse me, and with the heat mat, my first peppers were emerging at the 8-day point.
Yeah.
Last year, I grew hot peppers, the super hot chili peppers that
Yeah.
are notorious for taking a month or more to germinate. And I grew them, or I started them on a heat mat. They all germinated within 2 weeks. And
Hmm.
so it makes a big difference. Even regular bell peppers,
Yeah.
cayenne peppers, whatever kind of peppers you grow in the garden, if you don't have a heat mat, it can take 3 or 4 weeks for them to germinate. And so that's
Yes.
one of those investments for people who are going to start their own seeds that I think is worth it, because you can save a lot of time and have
Hmm.
much more success if you use the heat mat.
Yeah, and if you can find some of those specialty grow stores too, and I found one of these this last season as well. So they, you're talking, they got those ones that are just the size of a nice seed tray. I found one that's a 4 foot long one
Oh,
that's the
nice.
size of my seed starting table, like a 4 foot by 2 foot one, and just like the smaller ones, but it fits across the table for those
Nice.
of us who have multiple trays. You can put like, I put like four. I think I can almost squeeze 5 trays right on top of this
Nice.
thing
I'll
as
have to
well
look for that.
too.
I actually
Yeah,
have 5 heat mats
yeah,
because I haven't seen the big ones like that. And so I'll put each tray on its own heat mat. But I like
yeah.
the idea because my table's big enough and my light's big enough. I think that's a
Mhm.
great idea. I'll have to
Yeah,
look
these are
that.
the type of
Thanks.
things that you find and you'll look for in these specialty growing stores. I think you know what I'm talking about, cannabis
Yeah, we
growers
we
and those
we had
sort
a
of places.
really nice one here in Colorado Springs, but it didn't make it through the shutdown a couple years ago, and so we don't have a lot
Yeah.
of good options now. But I'm waiting. I'm hoping
Yes, exactly,
because they
right?
got good stuff. Yeah,
Let's see here. Val was also asking here too, as we're talking about it,
yeah.
what temp on the heat mat for peppers and tomatoes?
And so also in that 70 uh, degree temperature, a minimum of the 70 degree, you want it up to about 80, about 26 Celsius. And so I have a Spider Farmer heat mat that has a regulator, a temperature regulator, and I've got links to it on my YouTube videos. And so I have it set for 75 degrees Fahrenheit. and I'm finding my pepper seeds are germinating. It takes them 8 to 12 days at 75 degrees. I haven't noticed that any warmer than that makes much difference. So I'm saving a few pennies in electrical costs. And so I target 75 because I can manage it. Most of the mats that you buy that don't have a temperature control tend to be in the 75 to 80 degree
Mhm.
Fahrenheit range. And so they're perfectly fine.
Yeah, that's about a good temperature. Let's see here. Now, Jay asked just a little bit ago too, is there any advantage to using quick start seed techniques in early seedlings, i.e., wet paper towels, bags, or soaked cotton balls? Thank
So
you.
I'm nodding my head ironically because no, I don't think there is. So
Okay.
like with the super hot pepper seeds, uh, there was everything from soak the seeds overnight in water to soak the seeds for 3 days on a wet paper towel to douse the plants with lemon or the seeds with lemon juice for 2 hours. There are
Mhm.
so many of these tips, and I had uh, close to 100% germination by just putting the seed in moist seed starter mix under or on top of a heat mat. And I see the same with my tomatoes. I don't do any prep. I don't soak pea seeds overnight. I don't soak bean seeds overnight. If the environment is moist, save yourself some steps. Now, you're not hurting anything in most cases by soaking
Yeah.
seeds overnight, but maybe it'll buy you an extra day on the front end of germination. But I'm a simple, easy kind of gardener, and every step you add to the process can cause a problem if you don't do it right. And I've seen this with the paper towels where you start your seeds on paper towels and they weren't moist enough and you forgot about them for a couple days, and then you go back to them and you find a bunch of small dead germinated seeds on the paper towels. If you had started them in your trays, you would have bypassed that that mistake. And so I just go directly into seed starter mixes with almost everything I grow because it's easier. And in
Yeah.
almost all cases, it's not necessary. Now, there are some seeds that require scarification. Nasturtiums are a great example.
Yeah.
You do have to cut or nick or scrape those kind of seeds. A lot of native seeds or native plant seeds often have to be damaged
Yeah.
before they will germinate. So, yeah, definitely take those steps. But
I know.
for basic seeds we grow in the garden, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm lazy. I do it. I have success. And I just don't see a need to add extra steps if I don't have to.
Yeah, yeah, and then too, think of, like, some of those ones that really grow fast, you know? So,
Yeah.
like, if you're starting something, say, in a paper towel, and that root system's coming right out, and you're trying to pull this out of there, you know, you're kinda jostling around that root system, you're maybe pulling or breaking or damaging
Yep.
pieces of that root system, which is gonna set it back just a little bit more itself, and then, you know, where you could have just already I mean, it being in the soil already just gets going and gets
Yeah.
doing its thing without having to worry about any movement or any sort of thing like that. Let's see here. I want to make sure we got. Oh, here we go. Dusty Flats was asking, is there an easy no-brainer way to prune raspberries and blackberries? Differences between everbearing, erect, sprawling.
So, yes. Um, it depends on the type of raspberry that you're growing. And the easy, no brainer way is to first figure out which type you're growing. So I grow a raspberry called Everbearing, and there are two basic types of raspberries. There are the type of raspberries that will fruit on the first year's cane, the prima cane, And then there are raspberries that fruit in the second year. And that's the way blackberries are too, is they're fruiting on the floricane in the second year. And so if you're growing a type of raspberry like I am, the Heritage is a primocane variety, you cut it down to the ground. That's how you prune it, because it will flower and fruit in the first season, and you don't need to worry about pruning it at all. You can cut it all the way down if you want, or cut it in half, and it will still leaf out and give you a early harvest, but not nearly as much in the second year. And so that's the easiest way to do it, is to grow those varieties and then just cut them down completely. 4 of the types that grow or that fruit in the second year, like the floricane and the blackberries, those are the ones that typically will need to be trellised in some way, like trained along a wire. And it depends on how big the plant is going to grow. I grew some blackberries years ago that the canes would grow 10 to 12 feet long. And so you could cut those down to like 6 feet long to overwinter. Or the canes that might be growing 6 to 8 feet tall, you can cut back to 4 or 5 feet. So it does depend on the variety and doing a little bit extra research. But the basics are the same. Once you know which type you have, then just prune it the same way every year at the same time, and it really becomes quite simple.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see here. We had a comment for you. Gardner Scott. Can you let Gardner Scott know I want to thank him for helping me get started in my garden during the 2020 COVID lockdowns. Gardening made a huge positive impact during that difficult time, and I still love it.
Well, thank you for saying that. I'm so glad that I could help. I've heard that from a number of people, and it's not just me, you as well, Enoch, and
Yeah.
all of us who were making videos during that time. Really did influence a lot of people. I'm glad I could help, and that's why I make my videos, is to get people excited and motivated about gardening, and hopefully learn how to do it to make it as easy as possible so that they keep doing it.
Yes, yes, exactly. That's, the big primary mission, is really, I enjoy and have fun doing the channel and making videos and, getting to share my garden with a lot of people. But, the primary goal is to kind of inspire and to kind of, help people along and show them, you with
Absolutely.
all of this great garden knowledge and all those wonderful videos you put out on your channel and everything. I mean, if there's anybody watching who hasn't checked out Gardner Scott's channel, you do have to check it out. He's got everything on
appreciate
every
that.
topic there. And and for me, it's just kind of sharing my passion for growing and showing people that you can grow in spaces you wouldn't think about. And to be able to do that is really kind of the really great pleasure of being able to do and make
Yeah.
videos and be a garden content creator.
And I think every gardener has that potential, not necessarily to make videos on YouTube like you and I do, but it was 20 years ago that I became a master gardener. And I would say what I learned in the master gardener program is 2% of what I know about gardening, if that
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
Almost everything I've learned from doing, from experimenting, from reading books, from watching YouTube videos, from just getting out in the garden and getting close to plants and figuring out what you have to do to make that plant grow. And so if you're willing to put in the time and the effort to teach yourself by watching our videos or a blog or a book or whatever it happens to be, 20 years from now, you could be on a live stream talking about gardening as well, because I'm just lucky that most of that information stays in my head and that I'm able to regurgitate it in a way that most people can understand. But it's just time. It's just putting in the effort, and
Yeah.
you can become an expert gardener in whatever area you want to be by just devoting attention to it.
Yeah, yeah. Just and again too, a better time to spend too than being in a garden, growing things and all of that. And Yeah, and we all, as I mentioned even earlier, is that there's just so much more that you can even get from a garden than just the food and
Oh
the
yeah,
and the plants that you're growing. It's the experience. It's sharing the experience. It's the connection with nature and life and all that sort of stuff that we get from it. So it's just really something that is not only great to be able to enjoy for ourselves, but then also to be able to share that with others too is really
absolutely.
special.
Yeah, we talked about getting our grandkids out in the garden, and that's a huge joy of mine. And I'll
Yeah.
point out in the picture behind me, that's Mala. That's
Oh
my
yeah.
garden dog. And she is so happy every time
Yeah.
we go out to the garden. And it makes
Mhm.
me happy to see her happy in the garden. And so
Yeah.
plants make me happy, building makes me happy, but it's having others in the garden, whether it's my dog or my kids or grandkids, that really does bring the ultimate enjoyment.
Yeah, yeah. I'm really glad you mentioned that too, because I have cats. I have a couple of my little cat buddies. One of them who actually moved away to my neighbor's place, and lives with my neighbor now. But every time I'm out in the garden or out in the alleyways, he always comes out and comes rolling around and hanging out and all of that sort of stuff. So it's great to even share times with our furry friends too. And
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. And let's see here. We had one. We'll get down here. If anybody's got any last quick questions here for Gardner Scott, as we're heading to the end of the show right now, drop them in the comments section real quick here. We did have this one question. Skippy asked, Gardner Scott, since you're retired from the Air Force, do you miss flying the big planes? Do you still fly in retirement? Any friends with private planes? Just curious.
That's a great question. Yes, I do miss. I flew the KC-135, which was the air refueling tanker. It's about the size of a 737, and I'll be out in my garden, and depending on which way the wind is blowing, will determine the flight path of the planes from my local airport. And occasionally they fly relatively close to my house. I always stop and watch. And occasionally I'll see the Air Force planes that are following the same pattern and just look up. And, like many of us with happy memories, it jogs some of those memories of those times when I was doing that. And it's not always fun and games, of course, but in old age, that's what we remember is the enjoyment and the fun. And no, I don't fly anymore. I was an instructor pilot in the Air Force, and one of the things I learned in all of my years instructing others, and I was an evaluator and really at the peak of my abilities, I recognized that to be able to sustain that level of competence requires a lot of work. And when I retired, honestly, I just didn't have that much time to devote to flying so that I felt safe and able to do it myself. So instead, I just shifted my focus into other areas, primarily gardening, and it's still enjoyable for me to stand in my garden or sit on the bed. Sometimes I'll do that too, especially with the planes that fly over occasionally, and I'll just sit on the bed and just watch the planes as they do their thing in the sky, and that's okay for me. I lived it. I understand it. I have those memories. I don't have to do it anymore.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah, what a great experience though too, to be able to have those types of memories as well too. And Big Will Dog says US Airmen stick together.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right on. And Dusty was saying, thank you, Scott, for being here while you are recovering.
I'm glad I
Thanks for
could.
the chat, everyone. Bright spot on a cold, dreary day. So yes, that's awesome. I'm glad you could take a break from that crummy weather and enjoy a fun live stream here with us here with Gardner Scott.
Absolutely.
Real quick here, we do have another question popped in here. Hendrix asks, what are your favorite native plants you nurture on your land? Native plants, that's a good one too.
And so I think, and I used to do this too. I've got a lot of native plants in my landscape, And many of us, when we're adding native plants, we focus on the flowers. And those are very important because your local plants that flower most likely are food for your local insects, particularly the beneficial insects. So having native plants that flower is a great idea. I think what gets overlooked and what I'm focusing more on these days are the grasses. And
Oh
so
yeah.
blue stem grasses are native to my area. And we have little blue stem and big blue stem. And so, at least right now, and it changes from year to year, but those are my favorite native plants because one thing when you learn more and more about gardening, the grasses actually have such benefit to insects. During the winter, a lot of insects will
Mhm.
live in the grasses if you don't cut them down. So don't cut them down. So they're overwintering in the grasses. They're also hiding spaces for small birds that are learning to fly. And they just have so many benefits to the life cycle within your garden. But it also helps improve the soil too. That's one of the reasons grasses are native to most regions of the world because they're an early plant that helps break apart the soil and helps add nutrients as insects eat the roots, or I should say, subterranean insects and bacteria and fungi will eat the roots of those plants as well. So I would say the blue stem grasses are my current favorite, and I encourage anyone that's growing native plants, add grasses to your mix.
Yes, great idea. Grasses, definitely. Lots and lots of really awesome grasses out there that you
Yep.
could add to your plants, and just find ones again too that are native to your area. We'll just kind of mention, it's kind of been a rolling theme throughout our discussion today, is get out there and Google and find your local extensions. And those are another great place to find those natives and those native plants that you can add to your garden as well too. They're going to know which ones are going to be the best for where you're growing.
Yep.
So when it comes down to all sorts of information, go ask a master gardener, just like we've been asking Master Gardener Scott all day today. Thank you so much for
Oh, it's wonderful to
coming
be
in and
here, Rainey.
joining me for this. And and for doing this too. I asked you about this a while back ago about coming and joining with us
Mhm.
on a regular basis to kind of have a fun little discussion and be able to really kind of extend access to you and all of your
I
gardening
appreciate
knowledge.
that.
So, it's just great for us here to have you here. And again, thanks for joining us here. And we'll
And
definitely
let's
be
do it
having
again
you.
next month.
That's right. We'll do it again next month. It will be which is, again, as I was trying to explain to people, this first month we had to kind of flip it around
Yeah,
because
because I was
Scott was
traveling.
traveling, and we had, and so we did our book of the month club last week, and the questions with you this week. But next month it will be the second Sunday of the
Mhm.
month. So that will be, let me look here at the calendar real quick. I think this is the 12th. So that would be the 12th of May.
And that works
No,
out great
April.
because
April 1st.
of
I'm sorry.
April.
Wait.
Yeah. I'm
Yes.
actually traveling during the third week of April. So it actually
Yeah.
fit with my calendar much better to do it on the second again.
Perfect. So yeah, that'll be April 14th, mind you. Sorry, everybody. April 14th. And that's when we'll have Gardener Scott back with us again too. And that'll be like, again, every second Sunday for us throughout the season, which is perfect. Gives us a chance to kind of tap into different things going on throughout the growing season. So we'll have kind of different
Yeah.
discussions about different things as we're moving along throughout the year. So it's just really, really great to be able to do that. And so make sure everybody's subscribing to the channel and keeping an eye out for those discussions as well. And plus, we did put up a reminder, we'll do that one more time, that you have your live stream coming up tomorrow morning,
Yeah.
11 a.m. Eastern time on the Gardener Scott channel, which you can find a link to down below. So if you haven't checked out that live stream and we didn't get to your question here today,
It would
then
be great.
definitely go enjoy Gardener Scott on his channel and get a chance to ask the questions there too as well.
Absolutely.
Each and every Monday. Awesome, Scott. again, too, really great to have you here for the show. And I think we're gonna have to help you get that voice a little bit of a break here,
Yeah.
so that you'll have a little bit ready for your stream tomorrow as well.
Yeah, let's hope that it doesn't get worse. This is actually the worst it's been. I feel the best I have all week, but my voice is not showing it. So thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm going to rest my voice and drink lots more tea. And hopefully tomorrow will be not quite as gruff sounding for the show.
Exactly. Excellent. Excellent. All right. Yeah. Again, too, one last time, check out the links down below. Check out Gardner Scott on his live stream tomorrow. And thanks once again, Scott. Thank you for joining with us.
Thanks, Enoch. See you next month.
You got it. Let's Get Growing is sponsored by IV Organic.
Hi, my name is Charles Malky, biologist and plant expert with Ivory Organics, where we grow cool plants and author Saving the World with the Home Garden. Ivory Organic 3-in-1 Plant Guard has 7 natural oils that protect your plants, not just from the summer heat as well as winter cold, but also protects your plants from damaging insects and rodents. The oils in the product include castor, cinnamon, clove, garlic, peppermint, rosemary, and spearmint. These oils are natural insect and rodent repellent oils, which are encapsulated by the base powder, offering your plants months of protection at a time. 1 application per year will suffice for protection against damaging summer sunburn and winter sun scald, but if the target is pests, application as much as 2 to 3 times a year may be necessary.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much to Gardner Scott for such a great conversation. And we got to discuss all sorts of really good information to help you out and getting started with your gardens. And again, too, really great conversation. Plus, real quick, great point too. Again, I want to make sure that you all go out and check out and find out your local extensions. Those are, again, great places to go and find good, pertinent information to where you're growing locally. And then, of course, come join with us here and ask questions during our Sundays with Scott's on second Sunday of the month too. And then as well too, come and check out our let's see here. I'm going to put this up. Come check out our Facebook group, which we also have a link to down below to our Facebook group. That's a great place where you can get together as well with everybody else in our gardening community, as we're a growing gardening community here. Definitely come and join with us there too for the Let's Get Growing gardening group, where you can share pictures, video, all sorts of questions, all sorts of things with everybody else in the community. So if there are further questions or anything like that, you can maybe catch up with someone there too, to be able to get some sort of answers to things that you're dealing with as well. But also, just more so than anything else, I love to have you all there and take pictures and share with me all of your garden spaces, as we're talking about and showing my gardens here through our videos and different discussions we're having here on the show. It's really awesome for me to be able to connect with all of you as well too, by seeing your gardens. So going over to our gardening group is a great way to be able to do that as well too. So I look forward to seeing all of you there as well too. And also, just to kind of remind everybody again too, we did have a really awesome conversation yesterday on the show with Jenna from Growfully with Jenna. She joined us for a really awesome gardening conversation on our Saturday show as our featured guest. So definitely go back and check out that discussion with Jenna. It was really awesome. You can find that as well at our homepage here on our YouTube channel. Just go to the homepage, check out our live section there as well to find all of the other great conversations with all the other awesome gardeners we've had an opportunity to talk to over our last growing season. There are a lot of great great interviews that we did last season, and we're just getting started this season with all of our interviews this year. Last Saturday, we had with us Nate from Gardening Like a Viking, and we had Nate on with a really awesome conversation. He was our most viewed gardener on our show last season, so it was really awesome to be able to bring him back for our very first show of the year this year. So you can check out that conversation again, as well as the conversation with Jenna on our live page off of our homepage here on YouTube as well too. And then again, if you haven't already, be sure to click that like button, hit the thumbs up, give this video a like if you haven't already, and subscribe as well. Hit the bell notification so that you can be notified of all of our upcoming videos and shows here on Let's Get Growing. And then definitely be sure to share and get the word out about our show so we can introduce all of these really awesome gardeners to more and more people, as we're a growing show here. So we really rely on all of our viewers to really help us get the word out here, to make sure that everybody's getting an opportunity to come join with us here each and every Saturday and Sunday for our Let's Get Growing show. And I do want to let you know that next Saturday, for our featured guest next Saturday, we are going to have on with us the Gardening Channel with James Prigioni. So we've got James joining with us on the Gardening Channel with James Prigioni. Really great conversation that we had with James. This last week. This is a pre-recorded interview, and so it was last week that we had him on for a really cool conversation. So really looking forward to having him on there. So definitely come and join with us there, as well as we've got Joe and Corky joining with us from Grow Big TV. They'll be joining with us for our You Following Me segment, and they've got really awesome, really fun live streams there, Joe and Corky's Grow Big TV. So we'll get to introduce you to them next Saturday. So that'll be next Saturday's show. So be sure to come check that out again too. Really great conversation. And again too, it's a pre-recorded one, but I'll be in the conversation in the comment section. So it's a little bit more opportunity for me to kind of be able to get in there and have fun and discuss and chat with all of you through the chat box and the chat conversation, more so than working the actual show. So that's really going to be fun too. And then for our next Sunday show, next Sunday, again, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern, we're going to have our next Sunday edition will be kind of the introduction of what we're going to try to do here throughout the growing season as well too, is have a kind of fun little gardening roundtable discussion with different gardeners as well too. This is going to be an opportunity for us to be able to bring back previous guests that we've had either featured or on our Are You Following Me segment, and other authors and people who have been a part of our show, to bring them back on, and then hopefully have like these really cool, fun discussions where, again, we can talk about different things and questions you might have as well. But we'll try to keep them a little bit topical and talk about different things, whether we're talking about, fertilizers that you should use in your garden, or pests that we're dealing with, and different things like that. So we're just going to basically be starting with it's the first week of spring this week, so that's just in a couple of days. And each and every year over the last couple of years, I've done a live stream already with my good friends Kang Star and Christopher Bransdahl. Kang Star joining us from Texas, and our good friend Christopher Bransdahl, who's been a longtime friend of mine on our channel, is out of Norway. So we're going to have these two back on again for what will be kind of our annual kind of discussion, first week of spring discussion that we've had for, I don't know if it's like 3-4 years now that we've done this. So it kind of works out perfectly to have them on the first week of spring for our first gardening roundtable. So definitely be sure to come and join with us this next Sunday for that show as well too. So again, I want to thank you all so much for joining with me here today. It's been really great to have you all here. And see all of your comments, lots of really, really great questions from everybody today. So it was just really great to have you all on, and really looking forward to it this next week. And again, too, just trying to catch up with everybody real quick here as I'm looking through the comments section here. Awesome comments here as we're ending the show. But yeah, really great again to have you all here with me. And again, we'll see you next Saturday on the show, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and next Sunday. And so from all of us here, let's get growing. You all have a really great week.